My Bitcoin Story, and I'm here with Mel Loh. Mel is the co-founder of Investera. It's an edtech platform to teach people how to invest, and she has experience in terms of business consulting with entrepreneurs and startup. So, welcome to the show, Mel. Happy to have you here.
Yes, happy to be here too. Thanks for inviting me on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we've been, we are based in Bali actually, but we have to do this Zoom call instead of meeting personally because of the COVID situation. But it's very in. I'm really excited to hear from Mel because Mel has been diving a lot into investing and also teaching people about investing, especially for women. So yeah, we're going to talk more about that, about how women can invest and how Bitcoin help women in terms of investing. So maybe before we start, can you start your Bitcoin story, Mel?
Sure. Yeah, my Bitcoin story started like many of us Bitcoiners. I came across one of my friends who would not stop talking about Bitcoin. I had never heard about it, but he just kept going on and on every time I saw him. So eventually it piqued my interest, and I was really lucky because him and some other friends of mine put together a little workshop on Bitcoin 101 that I attended. And that's where I got my first self-custody wallet set up, which was an awesome learning experience. At that stage, though, it was still, a bit of a mystery to me what this was all about. And so I jumped into the rabbit hole and started studying and learning and reading as much as I possibly could, which there's so much more out there now, but at that time there was a bit less material on the internet. So I was just scouring for it, and also, going to weekly meetups and talking, making a lot of new Bitcoin friends and having very uncharacteristic conversations, uncommon conversations that I had previously had. And from there, I actually went and took a course by Andreas Antonopoulos, one of my favorite Bitcoin educators out there. And it's an online MOOC that anyone could take. Actually, they're still even hosting it now, many years later. And so that was like a great way for me to learn as well. And then I started working in the crypto industry too. So helping out to consult with projects on strategy and marketing and branding, and just project development as a whole, which I still do on the side, as well as growing Investera, the startup that we spoke of earlier.
Wow. And when was this? What year was this that you first bought Bitcoin?
Well, it was back in 2014, actually. Yeah.
Wow, 2014. That's even before, I think I started buying Bitcoin in 2016, 2017. So this is like way before.
I'm a boomer.
You're a boomer. Exactly. Awesome. Oh wow. So you yeah, because of your friend, then you become curious, and then you decided to buy and then go into the rabbit hole. So let's talk more about right now, when you are currently developing Investera, and then this is a platform for people to learn to invest, right? So in this podcast, I would like to dig more about uh, women and investment, because it seems like a very taboo topic in women, right? So I want to ask for your opinion, as you know, as women, why do you think women needs to invest?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I would say I'm really passionate about getting more women into investing because there's just a huge gap. And I just, we can talk about it from a personal level, first of all, and then we can go bigger picture. But on a personal level, I believe that everyone should have equal access to achieving financial well-being and financial freedom. Predominantly, historically, we've seen that men and our male peers are more common and more likely to invest their money and grow their wealth. And therefore, when they hit old age or retirement, they actually have 35% more money than women of the same age. And so, when I was looking at some of these stats and seeing, why is that? That's where we kind of start uncovering, what are the reasons why women aren't investing and why is it important that they do? And so, of course, the topics of financial well-being and financial independence are really, really important for individuals to live, a peaceful, content, safe, secure life, right? Unfortunately, only 90% of women actually feel confident that they're going to be financially secure later in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's a really high number. And imagine, how much life impact, positive impact we could have on people if we could help them become more financially secure. From a bigger picture, what I start to wonder about, because, getting into the Bitcoin space, especially, you kind of wonder about the financial system and how could it, how is it broken and how could it be better? And naturally, one of the topics that come up is, what would happen to the financial system if more women, if there was more balance of genders? And when I say women, I mean women and people who identify as women. What would happen if there was more of a gender balance? Or what would happen if more people, more women got involved and made financial decisions that were based on their values? What would the world look like? What would the financial world look like? What would our economy look like? And I believe that, and studies have shown also, that women tend to make choices that are more equitable, that also, take into account environmental and social measures. And also that their studies show that women actually can outperform men in investment performance by doing this. So I find that to be really interesting. And that's kind of a future that I would like to support and see what could come about.
Wow. I totally agree, because like years ago I was working in India, and we work a lot with people in low income communities. So there are actually, in India, there's a lot of businesses or even lending program or investment program, not investment, but just like mostly like lending or financial access to all these women. Because what happened in India is that women is actually taking care of the family's finance. And if women can earn more, or if women can have more access to money, or even just like manage their own money, they will think about like, oh yeah, maybe they can provide better food in the table, or they can think about like their kids education, all these things. And I think in terms of economy, like macroeconomy always come from the smaller economy, which is the family economy. So yeah, I think women has a very big uh what is it called, like factor, or even role in terms of the economy itself.
Yeah, exactly. Like that word role, like the role to play, because we already see, like you mentioned in the household level, like a lot of women are running the household finances. And so, there's a lot of myths around like women and money and women and investing, like, but actually, women are soon, actually in the next 10 years, are going to be controlling the majority of wealth that exists and wealth that is existing to be able to spend. And so, we're already going to be in a position where we have access to the majority of money. And then what's lacking, though, is the level of education. And the level of access and confidence, because we also have to break down some of the psychological barriers and social conditioning that has happened over the generations that have stopped women from getting involved in the investments. Still, women have gotten really good at saving money, or like we said, managing household finances and making sure everyone's taken care of. But the investment piece, learning how to actually manage and grow the wealth, there has been a huge gap in knowledge in our education system and in our households have blocked women from getting involved and really stepping into their power on that front.
So you talk about a little bit about psychological barriers or maybe limiting belief. So yeah, from your experience, what is the most common limiting belief in women when it comes to investing?
Yeah, so what we often do at our workshops that we hold at Investera is we often start the session with an audience of women saying, who here believes that they're an investor? And, you know, there's a small percentage that actually feel fully confident to say that they are. So I would say that, you know, having confidence in oneself is one of the psychological pieces there. And that confidence or lack of confidence is often perpetuated because there's a bit of shame that comes around not knowing how to invest or not knowing how to make themselves to a level of financial security. And so then when that shame is there, it really blocks us from making a change, because that means that we have to step out of our comfort zone and also potentially admit something that we don't know. And then also the other aspect that's come up quite commonly is that we've interviewed dozens of women in our startup phase in our market research, right? So we've interviewed dozens of women about investing or why they're not investing. And the number one word that came up in those interviews was trust. And so it was trust in themselves. Like, do I trust myself to manage my own money? But it was also, who can I trust to help me with my money? And that was a really interesting take, because we started to dig into that. And, you know, the trust issue of like, who can I trust, or where do I go to get trustworthy information about investing was huge. And we actually started doing internet research about it. Like, we're like, okay, where would people go? You know, we want that for ourselves even. So we started doing a bunch of research online, and just, there's so many like scammy things out there, or, you know, everything is often, the majority is branded towards men, towards a male audience. And so already you don't feel like it's relatable. 86% of financial advisors out there are men, white men over the age of 55. So again, like, women don't have professionals to relate to really. And so, yeah, it's just the whole structure of the financial services industry that really could use an upgrade and a revamp. And it's starting to happen, and that's great. But I think it's going to take more effort, and it's going to take also not just relying on financial services, but relying on our own individual sovereignty and self-determination to do that.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting you mentioned about trust, and I totally agree, because there's a lot of scam out there, and they always targeting women. If I see, I mean, I'm just saying with my family, or at least my mom or like my aunt, they say like, oh yeah, there is this I don't know, some kind of investment opportunity. You put this money, it's apparently it's a Ponzi scheme, right?
Right.
So yeah, another question regarding trust. So who do you think influence women the most when it comes to investing?
Yeah. Oh man, I'm still stuck on your scammy Ponzi scheme thing because that's what's kind of scary out there, right? Like, there's so many people out there taking advantage of the lack of knowledge, and also the desperation, and also the the desire to get rich quick, which is a very dangerous, desperate place to be, which in most cases it's totally not possible, but they'll play on that kind of psychology. So yeah, that's a bit of a minefield. But anyways, back to your question on, who is influencing women to learn about investing. So it makes me think for a while, because I went into a bookstore, one of like the biggest bookstores in Singapore, Kinokuniya, my favorite. And I went into the investing section because I wanted to find a female educator on investment. But I actually went and I started filming videos of the bookshelves and sending it to my co-founder, Joy, at Investera, saying, look what's here, because it was just all faces of men. And it was predominantly white men, older guys talking about investing. And I couldn't find any women that I could learn from. And so there's definitely a huge lack there. So of course, like there's the famous guys like Warren Buffett or Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Those are some iconic teachers that can still, like, regardless of gender, they have some great material, and that's totally fine. And this is not something where I'm, slamming like all men who teach or whatever. I just want to see more of a balance in people that I can relate to. And so, I still think that people are going to, if they are interested to learn about investing, they're going to traditional teachers like that. But more often than not, they're actually not learning about it at all. So in the interviews that I've done and the research we've done, most women are actually not investing at all. And so if they do have, if they have acquired some money, it's usually sitting in a savings account. And it's actually losing money to inflation. And so all their hard-earned money is actually being depreciated over time. And by not investing, they're actually losing out, sometimes, depending on how much they have, to $1 million worth on average in certain countries of wealth that they could be creating, which is massive. But because no one's teaching them this at school or at home, they're actually unaware. So I wish I could have more names for you of like who are people learning from, but I guess that's one of the whole premises behind Investera and why we're creating an education community, not exclusive to women, but putting women first in terms of creating a place that is a safe place to learn and get involved.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. It's very hard out there to pinpoint who is the female version of Warren Buffett, for example, right? Like there is no such thing as a role model, and I think most women as well. I mean, I'm just seeing it in my environment that most women will get into investment based on what their friends said. But if their friends also doesn't have enough education, so it's become like a bubble that they are misinformed or don't know what what to do with their money. But I think the smallest thing that women can do, at least in India, is that people are buying gold, right? But we can see that in the past 10 years, gold performance is not even good for inflation hedge. So women definitely needs to think about how they can at least like keep their wealth as it is, not losing value. And it's a big problem.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point of like, often if they do find out about an investment opportunity, it's through like word of mouth of their friends, because women, we trust our friend network, right? And we talk. Unfortunately, a lot of like myself and my female friends and many others, they don't, like, when we get together, we're not talking about finance and investing very much, right? And whereas like some of my male friends, they actually do. My co-founder, one of her previous boyfriends, had a whole WhatsApp group with his guy friends where they would just talk about investing. And so what's really cool to see when we do events with Investera. So we educate about Bitcoin and investing in general. And sometimes I'll meet up with some of the community members that have attended, and the conversations, they're like, I just bought Bitcoin today, hey, this dip is looking like a good buy opportunity. And, they're talking like that and making actual, real actions in their lives. And it's super exciting to see.
Yeah, that I want to have that more, like where women talk about finance and investing, because sometimes I feel like that when I meet my girlfriends, like I feel like I want to talk about Bitcoin, but then they say, you talk too much about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that. I think it's what's cool to watch is that it's changing. So, 7 years ago, I talk about Bitcoin and either the reaction is eyes glazing over, getting tired, or just like, no, that's gambling, or that's dangerous, or just, I don't get it. So therefore I'm going to close to it.
Mhm.
And now that Bitcoin is becoming more adopted and more acceptable, there's definitely, some female friends of mine are like knocking on my door, and wanting to have those conversations. I remember I went to a dinner party and I got like cornered to talk about Bitcoin. I was like, wow, this is different.
Definitely, right now, especially during the pandemic, people are getting more exposed to what they can do with their money, right? So let's talk more about Bitcoin, because you've been into blockchain and you took the course in blockchain and Bitcoin as well, in cryptocurrency. So why do you think Bitcoin is a very good investment for women?
So I feel like with the movement to digital assets and cryptocurrency, and especially Bitcoin, we're seeing one of the biggest transfers of wealth in our lifetime.
Mhm.
And I would love for women to have a seat at the table and to benefit from that. And this is one of the most open opportunities out there that we've seen in the financial system, because of the nature of Bitcoin, because of the decentralized nature, borderless, censorship, stateless. I think it's a really, like, it's a phenomenon that's happening.
Mhm.
And while for me, like, I started getting into investing through cryptocurrency, and then that started making me more interested in like other areas of finance and investing and how to diversify my portfolio, because that's what we really advocate for, like, to make sure you have a diversified portfolio where cryptocurrency is a portion of that, you know. And so, not only getting into Bitcoin, I'm advocating for, but also creating, a financial landscape that is really going to benefit you over a long period of time. So yeah, those are some of the reasons why. But also, okay, getting a bit like big picture again, is once you start learning about Bitcoin, it just cracks your mind open to so many other subjects of things. And it's been one of the most rewarding learning experiences and life-changing experiences I've ever had. It changed my social groups, like where I have new types of friends, different conversations, professionally. I got work opportunities that have been really fun and exciting. And then also from a mindset perspective of how we look at the world, how we look at the systems that we live in and interact with, and how we can have an influence and a role to play in them. It's just, for me, like, it's life-changing. And so of course I want to be like, hey, how about you guys come join? More women get involved and see how it may change their perspectives. And of course, there's the financial piece too, right? If this can help people, which I have seen it help people reach a place of more financial security and confidence, then that is huge. And I want that. I want that benefit for everybody.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I have a similar experience as well. Like when I start learning more deeply about Bitcoin, suddenly everything about finance become exciting. Like,
Yeah.
like I would before I won't care about what is a reverse repo, what is like how the money is created. Like who cares, right?
Yeah. I know, it's so funny. I'm like, how did I end up here? Because my, my dad used to work in the banking industry, and my mom was a computer programmer in the 70s.
Mhm.
And now I just feel like I'm like this weird love child of that in like the digital asset space. And I used to be like, I'm not going to ever work in the financial industry. I'm not going to follow my father's footsteps. And then sure enough, somehow I ended up there in my own way. But yeah, I never thought I would be excited about these types of topics. But it's just supplying endless material for me to keep expanding on.
Yeah. And I mean, also from my experience, like I've been very happy after talking a lot about Bitcoin with my family. Suddenly my mom decided to sold her old car and then put everything into Bitcoin. So
Wow.
yeah, I mean that's like a little bit like a step for me as a daughter, like, oh my god, I proud with my parents. But the things that click into my mom's mind is that if she save money in her bank account, she will lose the value of that money. And then if she put that in Bitcoin, it will eventually grow. I mean, in the next 2, 3, 4 years, right? So I think that's a really big milestone because she's like 50s, almost 60s. 50, yeah, how old is she? I did turn to calculate, but yeah, she's almost like 60 years old. Uh, but that's a change in mindset, and I think like with what I really like about Bitcoin is that it's a saving technology. So people people want to save money, but the problem with inflation right now, there's no point on saving. So that's why people tend to spend their money, and mostly women, they are consuming, right? They see like there's no point, so then they just like spend their money. But if they start saving or like buying digital assets such as Bitcoin, then they know that this will grow, and then therefore it's much makes sense if they save money and then yeah, grow their holdings basically.
Yeah, exactly. And also, once people start buying Bitcoin, um, you start and investing in general. Once you start seeing your financial life in a different way. Like, oh, should I spend my money on that nice like new clothing, vacation, meal, whatever it is, or should I go buy Bitcoin instead? Or should I invest, in my portfolio in some way? And it actually starts reprogramming the way you see your financial life and how you manage your money, which is massive. Like I've seen people that we've worked with at Investera completely shift their spending behaviors and end up dramatically increasing their net worth and also like their sense of future and how they're going to start allocating their funds. And it's really amazing. It's
Yeah.
really, really amazing.
Yeah, it's also like I feel like when I start as well accumulate Bitcoin, I feel like asset first and then expense the next, right? So you whenever you have money, then you immediately split it, how much money that I'm going to put for investing, how much money that I'm going to use for my daily expenses, instead of the vice versa, where normally we just use this money for expense and then whatever we have left we save, and it's normally not going to happen because you're going to spend all of your money.
Yeah, there's normally nothing left over at the
Yeah.
end of that, or it's just a small amount. So yeah, I really like the invest first approach, definitely.
So yeah, maybe also what is your recommendation for women if they want to start investing in Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I would say that the biggest hurdle to get over is inaction. So, I know a lot of people who have been asking me about Bitcoin for many years and still have not made a move. And then I'm like, okay, if you're ready to make a move, I encourage people to learn a little bit, so whatever resource it is. For example, like one of my friends attended my Bitcoin for Beginners workshop. He had been wanting to invest in Bitcoin for years, was always kind of overwhelmed, intimidated, putting it on the back burner. And then once he learned a bit more about the how-to practicalities, he immediately bought Bitcoin and got over that paralysis of action. And so I think, making sure that whether it's you have a friend who you ask, hey, I want to buy Bitcoin, can you help me? Or you take a more formal course, or you just know of a service in your local country that can help you. So of course, it's really exciting to get Bitcoin peer-to-peer, like from a friend, not through a centralized party or an exchange. But sometimes that's a bit of a steep learning curve. Mm-hmm. And you might not have people in your immediate vicinity to help you with that. So I often advocate then, okay, you just use a third-party service to get your foot in the door. The learning curve is already a little bit steep, so let's make it a bit easier and find, a crypto exchange in your country, so whether that's Indonesia, Indodax, or Luno, or, in America, it's like so many different exchanges, Coinbase, Gemini, whatever one you can find that resonates, and just sign up for an account and buy Bitcoin straight out of your bank account that you can link up to it. That is one of the easier ways to do it. And once you do that, then it gives you time, at least you've gotten skin in the game now, and you're starting to pay attention to what's going on, and you're incentivized now to keep learning. And so then you keep learning, and then you can get into, peer-to-peer, self-hosted wallets, those types of things, more advanced stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. Like, getting your first Bitcoin is the biggest step to invest. To invest, yeah. And what do you think about? I mean, I heard about this in so many times especially from my friends, female friends that bought Bitcoin. They saw, especially right now, the price of Bitcoin goes down, and then they were like shaken up and say like, oh my God, I just put like 1 million rupiah in there, and then now it's like the my money is gone, like half of it is already gone. So what do you think about that? About how do you talk to women regarding the volatility of Bitcoin?
Yeah, the volatility can be a bit queasy feeling in your stomach sometimes, especially if you're not used to it. So, we've been in Bitcoin for a while now, so we've gone through the big ups and downs. And, whenever I teach about Bitcoin, I'd pull up the Wall Street Journal psychology of a market graph, because it will show you how your psychology, how your emotions might change according to how the market is doing, so it's going up, everyone's feeling so euphoric that they're like a genius, that they're winning on top of the world, this is never going to go down, it's going to go on forever, euphoria. And then it starts going down, and it's like you go through basically the cycles of grief, like anger, disbelief, depression, panic, and then hopefully at the bottom you don't sell. Mm-hmm. And hopefully, like if you were going to sell, you would sell at the top. However, the whole reason why the ups and downs of the market is easier to withstand is because it depends on your investment approach. And what I advocate, and we advocate at Investera, is really to have a long-term time horizon. So, 4, 5, 6, 10 years, where you can. There will be big ups and downs of the market, but overall, the thesis, the idea behind it is that it's going to go up, and you're going to benefit from returns. And that's been shown within traditional markets like the stock market, for example, right? So if you have a long-term time horizon, you're definitely going to beat the market. You're usually, an average of 8%, which in the crypto world, that's like tiny of gains to have, because Bitcoin has had, I think, around an average of like 200% gains per year. Yeah. But so time is on your side. Just let it sit and roll. If you're a trader, that's a totally different approach. But I would say that for us, like 95% of our community is not going to be traders. They're going to be long-term holders. And so, then it's your job through the ups and downs to manage your emotions and to not get too rocked by the volatility, and just to hodl. Mm-hmm. On for dear life.
Yeah. And one of my friends also gave a very good analogy, like having Bitcoin is just like having a piece of land in Manhattan, in New York, for example. It's like a prime spot, like limited. And if you buy it, you won't sell it the next day. You will hold it for like as long as you can, because investment is about endurance. If you are thinking about, I'm gonna sell this next week, it's not worth of your time. Like everything that you need to invest, it's called investing for like the future, right? Like then the future, it's not next week, it's something that gonna happen 5-10 years in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I like that analogy. And also the fact that it's still such early days in Bitcoin. You know, like less than 2% of the world's population own some part of Bitcoin. And so, you know, we're extremely lucky if we can have some Bitcoin in our portfolios. And, you know, you'd have to really like yank it out of my hands for me to give that up, because it's, you know, this is an early mover advantage time as well. And also I believe so much in the philosophy, in the technology behind it. So, you know, that I think what would help people to endure, that's a good word, endurance, to endure the volatility is to really know, why are you in it? You know, what's your goal? And potentially helping you to set price points where you would feel comfortable to sell, and then sticking to it and not letting your emotions take over in those times.
Oh, very beautiful. Yes, absolutely agree 100%. So I think we are about to end this podcast. So if anyone wants to connect with you or want to know more about Investera, how they can contact you, Mel?
Yeah, I would say to go to our website. It's investera.io. And on there, we have a place where you can sign up for a newsletter. So that's where we send out, you know, some articles and resources and invitations to our upcoming events and workshops. So that would be the best way to get involved and get in touch. We also, you know, you can email us directly too at connect@investera.io.
Okay, cool. Don't forget to check that. And thank you so much for this time and for sharing your knowledge and your insight amongst women and investment in general. And I hope that through Investera, there are more and more women that's going to invest, especially in Bitcoin, with more women to buy more Bitcoin.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the support.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, thank you, Mel. Have a good day.
Thank you for listening to the My Bitcoin Story. Stay tuned for more episodes and click that follow button.